In the late 1990s and early 2000s, electronic music was a different genre than the one it is today. Despite many technical limitations compared to modern day, it was a time when innovation, experimentation, and a futuristic spirit were taking the world by storm. And amidst this transformative era emerged two enigmatic figures who would revolutionize the electronic music scene like never before. Hi, I'm Steven, and this episode is part of a series called Off-Brand, where I break down the formula behind the writing, performances, and production of iconic artists. I then try to create my own off-brand version of that artist's music in a brand new song that I write for each video. This is episode 2, and today's artist is Daft Punk. After a rock band they were in was described as a Daft Punky thrash, the French duo comprised of Thomas Bongalder and Guy Manuel de Cristo decided to name their new venture after the insult. With their innovative approach and distinct blend of disco, funk, house, and futuristic elements, they redefined the genre and captivated audiences worldwide. Daft Punk's meticulous production, infectious grooves, and catchy melodies became synonymous with their music. In their 30 years together, Daft Punk cemented their legacy as pioneers of modern electronic music, forever leaving an indelible imprint on the industry they helped redefine. So what is it that gives them that signature sound? Let's dive in and find out. For the purposes of this video, I decided to focus on Daft Punk's first 3 studio albums. While Random Access Memories is one of my favorite albums of all time, I wanted to focus on the original sound that Daft Punk was known for. And Random Access Memories differed from it quite a bit because there was live instrumentation on it. I went through and wrote out the structure for a couple of these songs so I could really dive in and understand them better. A few things that jumped out to me immediately. First, there's a trance-like repetition in pretty much all of these songs. It's made for that club feel, you're on the dance floor, you're hearing this thing, and you just don't want it to stop. Another thing that jumped out at me was that in a lot of these songs, they start with the sample that the song is kind of based around, and it uses this filtered version of it that everything builds on. But first you just hear that sample alone, and then other things come in around it. That's true on Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Aerodynamic, One More Time, Defunk, and Around the World, just to name a few. Looking at the sections of these two, there's a little bit of a vibe where you have often an A section and then a break for a B section back to an A section. In a lot of these, it sounds kind of like the same thing, but when you actually take a deeper look, it switches up over time. But obviously none of this would work if these grooves were not awesome. And that's something that I was just noticing as I was doing this, is how many lines are just so iconic. It really makes it fun to listen, and it really makes it fun to go through and analyze and be like, wow, that really works. And why? Because I just want to hear it more and more. Their unique production style is a big part of what makes a Daft Punk song what it is. Daft Punk makes heavy use of sampling records from the 70s and the 80s. If you're not familiar with the term sampling, it basically just means you're taking some piece of audio that already exists and using it for a new purpose. Their song Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is particularly famous because it was sampled by Kanye West in the song Stronger. However, it's funny to note that that song itself was sampling another song, which was Cola Bottle Baby by Edwin Birdsong. There are many examples of sampling in Daft Punk songs. Another good one would be One More Time. In that case, the song is taking bits and pieces of a sample and sort of jumping around from part to part to create what you hear in the song. Let's talk about the drum sound. Their drums have this thick, compressed, sort of digital, crunchy sound to them. Here's a quick example of what that sounds like, just to get a sense of what it's like. They're also using a lot of layers to create the drum sound. So often the initial sample will have drums in it, and then they will add several other layers, maybe a kick drum, a snare, maybe a second kick on top of that, and then a lot of auxiliary things as well. Go listen to the song Aerodynamic, and you'll notice that the drums seem to get more intense as they go. And that's basically because they're taking the drums from the sample, and then they just start adding more elements on top of that. Another huge part of Daft Punk's sound is their use of retro analog synthesizers. Synthesizers had existed for several years before, but it was really the 1970s where they started to become mainstream and featured in a lot of songs. Daft Punk creates this very nostalgic sound, partly due to the sampling, but also a lot because of these analog synthesizers, and then they blend that with this whole sci-fi aesthetic that really brings home the 70s feel. Of course, as well, there's this whole nostalgia that they create for the late 90s and early 2000s, because that's actually when their music came out that was using this 70s aesthetic. Their bass lines are really something special, particularly a couple songs like Voyager. The lines almost sound like they're a real bass guitar, but they're actually using synthesizers on nearly every song. Lastly, if there's one thing that I knew about Daft Punk going into this video, it's that robotic voice sound that they have. They use vocoders, auto-tune, and talk boxes to create that robotic sound that matches the creatures we see as Daft Punk. All right, let's get into writing this song. I have a feeling this is gonna be a lot of fun, but I'm gonna need to try a lot of things out, and it's gonna be an adventure, so let's get into it. So what I've done so far is I've downloaded a couple of royalty-free disco tracks, so I'm gonna sample them and see what I can make with my own new song. Let's check it out. So I think this is the one I'm gonna go for. We'll chop it up maybe a little bit, so we can do something like... So that's like basically just using the sample, but we're looping the first measure. Yeah, we'll do that. So on this sampled part, we have a few things. We have an EQ that can kill a little bit of those like bassier frequencies and a little bit of those like really high frequencies. We have a redux, which is gonna make this sound a little more computery, a little bit glitchy. A phaser flanger, and this is gonna make it sound a little bit like a tape machine, something like that, something that makes it sound a little bit old school. Okay, cool. So let's use this guy and build something around it. Let's see what we get. I'm gonna use the same drum loop that I was building off of earlier because that sounded super Daft Punky. There's something that isn't quite what I want in here. Let me listen to a couple Daft Punk songs and let's see if I can hear it. These are like really pulling from the original. These are like taking a whole section of an original song and sampling that one more time. It's like the anomaly there where it's chopping it up more. I think it's just like too quick. Like I'm going to that other chord. I'm not giving it enough time to sit. Let's try moving things around. Yeah, that's better. That gives us some time to like establish that trance-like groove. Everything's like double now, so we'll do that on the fourth time. We'll do this sort of thing the first three. Cool, that's kind of dope. I want to use this for sure. What if this was on acid bass? Oh. This is gonna need definitely some more like lead type stuff on top of it. We need to give it some like... This line is something I came up with, I think in like 8th or 9th grade, and I've always wanted to use it on something. Not convinced that's the right instrument again, but that's okay. We'll play around and see if we can find something better. That'll be some nice, like, let's get that in. That's gonna come in at some point for sure. I like that sort of walk down. That's very... I'm gonna do something like an F minor, something kind of weird, like F minor to B flat. Bum, 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 bum. That is a Daft Punky chord sequence right there. All right, so that's gonna come in at some point in the song. Now we need some other stuff. We're using the Arturia CZV, and I'm gonna see if I can find something that I like for this part. This actually seems like it could be kind of fun. Let's do like an ARP thing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just lengthening all these lines out so that the arpeggiator can like hit all the notes. An arpeggiator is just kind of hitting all of the different notes of a chord in a rhythm. Duplicate. Ah! That sounds very, like, Tron-y. Also very Tron-y. That's cool. Yeah, that's sick. That is sick. Oh, it's like so housey, funky. That is quintessential Daft Punk. Oh my God, synthesizers are so cool, but you could spend an entire lifetime investigating about 3 synthesizers, and sometimes I think you wouldn't get that far. Okay, cool. I think we have a lot of instruments. Maybe I'm just gonna add a few more Juno ideas, and then I'm gonna start trying to arrange this thing. Okay, here I have a Juno 106. So this is actually the same synthesizer that Daft Punk uses for a lot of their sounds. I'm gonna play around with it for a little bit and see what I can come up with. All right. Okay, so this is a bunch of ideas on the Juno. I don't know which of these I'm gonna keep. Probably not most of them, but this has been a lot of fun playing around with mainly the presets. I'm actually gonna record in a little bit of live guitar over this sample and just kind of make it sound like it was part of the original sample. Because I feel like there's a little bit missing there. All right, one other guitar part I want to get in there, which is just like a... Yeah, that'll be dope. Let's add in a little aux percussion too. Okay, so that was a fraction of the many different ideas that I tried when working on this. I'm about ready to show you this song, but before I do, I want to show you a couple more things I did and a few of the challenges I faced when getting this thing to the finish line. Let's take a look. One of the main things I struggled with on this song was getting the bass line to sound just right. I ended up using Voyager as an example, kind of learning how that bass line works and then adapting it to my song. And I think once I did that, things started to come together a lot more nicely. Another thing was getting the drums right. I knew I had to get this sort of cutting sound, this thing that was digital and thick, but something I missed and only really realized when I was comparing what I did to the songs was getting the right warmth to the drums. They do a really good job having this warm sound to the kick drum that really carries a mix. And until I could get that a lot closer, things weren't sounding quite right. I ended up using the sample I recorded and a lot of different instruments that I recorded as well. But because there were so many, it took a little bit to figure out how it all fit together. I wanted to make sure that we had this depth and a lot of different sound, but that everything was cohesive and there wasn't too much going on at any given time. It took a little bit to get some of these ideas together, but I'm pretty happy with what I came up with. All right, folks, hope you've enjoyed the video up until this point. Now time for off-brand Daft Punk. Hey there, thanks so much for watching this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really helps out this channel. If you didn't know, these episodes take a lot of effort and it takes a long time to build them. So If I can build this channel up, I can make a lot more cool stuff, and I can make it a lot more quickly. Also, shout out to my buddy Paul, who was in this episode. He gave me feedback on the mixes and helped me get it to the finish point, and then helped out with the video. You can check out his music below. I'm going to link that, and I'm also going to link my other music if you're interested in what you heard here. We hope to see you in the next episode of Off Brand.